everybody, it's Romania Black. So, we're on episode 27 of season 4 of Attack on Titan. Well, as I'm recording this, episode 28 has come out online, and I heard through the Discord today that we are getting a part 3 of the anime. Thank God. It's not that I didn't want a movie. It's not necessarily that. My whole thing, though, with any series, especially series that I love, is I want it all to be adapted. And I want it to be adapted in the most whole and complete way possible. And I know that so far the anime has left things out of the manga. I'm eventually going to go back through the manga and see all those things that were left out. But I was concerned about the movie because at the longest, I think the longest they do a movie is 3 hours. And you could argue that, oh yeah, they'd adapt everything in 3 hours. But it's just, I doubt that it would have been a 3 hour movie. It probably would have been 2, just for animation constraints and things like that. And so I would much rather have a 10 episode concise final season to do things in an episodic format and get everything in that they can, rather than try to scrunch it all in a movie and stuff get cut that was unnecessary. And plus, since I'd be reacting to it, I'd have to wait not only until the movie came out, but until it came out with streaming, with subtitles, and that could be like 2 years from now. So I am really excited because that means that I'm going to be reacting week to week with you all. I'll be caught up. It's going to be a week to week thing. I'm so excited. I have so many series now that I'm going to be watching week to week with you all. It's kind of crazy, but we'll cross that when we get to it. So I am excited to know there's going to be part 3. And also the English teacher in me is like, okay, season 1, part 1 was act 1 where we introduced our characters and the conflict and everything. Part 2 was when things all went to hell in a handbasket, aka this season. And then next season will be the climax and the resolution. Sure. It all works in a nice 3-act structure. There we go, Isayama. There we go. But I do have a few comments. Not that many, but as I'm recording this, we have 1 episode left. It's kind of insane. I'm getting ready to go on a trip tomorrow, so I'm recording this the day before I leave. So I won't be back until Sunday, next Sunday, a week from now. So I am going to be able to take your comments from episodes 24 and 26, as well as 25 and 27, or at least most of the ones from 25 and 27, and incorporate them into the reaction for episode 28, and whatever I leave out or don't get to, I'll be able to put into the recap. So I'll talk about the recap next week with that episode, because I do want to take my time on the recap for once in my life. With this series, I'm going to be able to take my time with the recap, and we'll talk about that next week. But I am going to do a season 4 part 2 recap, of course, and then we'll go from there. But yeah, we have 2, so this is the penultimate episode. Last episode was nuts. It was crazy. But I have some comments I want to tie in, and then we'll go from there with this episode. I don't know what's going to happen. There's a part of me that's like, well, the boat's going to get blown up. And looking at, I've pulled up the episode, getting ready to see it. And so we have, obviously, standing there, there's Connie and Armin, and they're standing there at the boat. But the boat does not look that big. It really doesn't. So I'm like, how many people are going to fit into this boat? Again, this flying boat. I don't know. It's going to be interesting to see what all ends up happening. So I don't know. It's no man's land, y'all. I don't know what Isayama's going to do with this. It's just, everything is complicated. As I've noticed with the comments the last couple of weeks, Isayama has crafted this very complex, very difficult story that if it ends in tragedy, I won't be surprised. If there's not a happy ending, I won't be surprised at all, because I don't know. I can't see, we'll talk about Eren in the recap, but I just can't see a lot of these characters having a happy ending, which seems fitting for Isayama's world. But anyway, I do have some comments before we start. Dingy and Pachita made a comment about how with episode 25, the whole issue being that communication is key in all of this. And I tied that a little bit to Eren in the last episode and his lack thereof communication with everybody. But the idea that oftentimes we as humans, we fail at this because we assume directly rather than talk things out. Yeah, we have seen that so much in this season where characters assume something about someone else. They assume something. Even last episode, Hanji assuming things about Flock, things getting assumed. And then we see how, what happens when you assume, and then it comes to life where the best laid plans get disrupted. And without that communication, then things just fall apart. And so I really liked that, Dingy and Pachita. That's a really good comment from the last episode. And I want to note, like with episodes 24, 25, and 26, there's this really cool thing that happens with Isayama. In that episode 24, I could see a lot of people's complaints, and I talked to Christopher Peterson about this, that I could see people's complaints that episode 24 is a very succinct episode. It like ties in a bunch of threads very quickly, and I could see an audience being like, wow, that got wrapped up really conveniently and quickly. But then episode 25 happens, and things are expanded and more complicated, and then the forest gets muddy again, and you realize that, no, things are really thorny. This one episode was just kind of like a fake out. Here's the thorniness. But by the end of it, you're like, oh, hopeful. Like, oh, well, they all talked it out. They at least have a plan. Things look hopeful. And then this episode happens, and Isayama's like, I gotcha. It's still mucky. It's still thorny. And it's not going to be easy. I'm like, oh, honey, it's great. Some dude and Alex Johnson, I'm going to point out with them, some dude pointed out, what are we going to do about Aaron? What are we going to do? Nervous laughter increases. That's the big question, right? Because at this point, the main thing is they just want to talk to Aaron. They just want to talk. And again, communication. Start with the foundation. That's great. Start from there. At least figure out what's in his headspace, because they don't know. We, the audience, know somewhat of what Aaron is doing because we've experienced episodes 19, 20, and 21, but no one else in the world of this fictional setting have a clue what is going through Aaron's head. None of them know. And so, yeah, the idea of just talking to him is the step one, right? And so I don't know what the solution with Aaron is. It's complicated. It's hard, but I feel like they're doing the right thing and at least trying to talk to him, rather than just stand there and let omnicide happen and the world be destroyed. They at least want to talk it out with Aaron and at least try to understand him. That's the thing. Because as several of you pointed out, all of these characters in this scenario, even before Connie shot those guys in the face, they're all sinners. They've all done acts of violence against others. Whether it was Marlians, whether it was people turned into pure Titans, whatever the case may be, they've all committed murder. Whether it was the Kinney squad, they've all committed murders. As Reiner noted back in episode 10 of season 2, they're just murderers with a short amount of time on their hands. So, that line always comes back to me. I'm like, oh, it's so poignant even now. Alex Johnson also noted, I like that he pointed this out, that with Aaron, it's not, Aaron's actions weren't just necessarily to protect Armin and Mikasa, but also Historia. And the Aaron Historia shipper in me was like exploding when he said this, but I had to rein myself in, or she, when Alex said this. But back in season 3, part 2, Aaron noted that he would rather sacrifice himself, but would not want to sacrifice Historia's life. And that kind of ties to Aaron's view on Historia, to Aaron's view on Armin and Mikasa as well. We saw Aaron stand up and say he'd risk his life for Armin back in Midnight Sun. And back in season 2, in episode 12, in Scream, he said he'd wrap that scarf around Mikasa over and over again and protect her. Like, Aaron has shown time and time again that he would sacrifice his life at any given moment. But he doesn't want to sacrifice their lives. The thing that gets frustrating about all of this is that his actions effectively leave the people he's trying to save out of the equation and out of the entire process itself. So it's kind of like, I'll save you, but I'm not going to talk to you about it. You just sit there and let it happen. And it makes Aaron assume that they're just going to be passive and let him save them. But that human nature, if he doesn't communicate with them, then... And Aaron's whole deal was he left them wanting them to hate him. So it's complicated. But I do like the idea, Alex, that you brought up about including Historia as someone that Aaron values. Because I do agree that whether you ship them or not, Historia is someone that is important to Aaron. And as Alex noted, Historia basically freed Aaron from literal chains back in season 3, part 1. So she does represent to him someone important because she essentially was part of trying to make him free. It's like, okay. So I really liked that. Sacha Purvis noted about communication, again, tying with Denji and Pachita, communication coming first, but then what? Because, yeah, the situation's complicated. If you can't talk Aaron out of it, which I don't think that they can, because that's kind of against Aaron's character. If you can't talk him out, then what do? Do you try to stop Aaron? Aaron is in the form of a giant spiny titan. I don't even know if that thing has a nape. I don't even know if they can, where they go aim a sword at. It looks like a giant spine. Okay, just anywhere. It seems like it'd be harder to kill than not. So I'm like, what do we do? So that it's just, Sasha had some interesting choice words. My answer would be, it's a cluster cuss. It's a cluster cuss. It's just, in the words of Fantastic Mr. Fox, it's a cluster cuss. It's just a mess. And there are no good answers at all. We just have to sit there as the audience and see how this is all going to play out. And again, hope that the character that you like lives. Right? And has a happy ending, which at this point I'm like, Isayama, I don't see these characters having happy endings, but I don't know. Vintage Man commented about Film Buff. One day maybe I'll watch Film Buff stuff. I don't want to watch anything now because spoilers, but and because I like looking at the comment section, it'd be far too tempting. But about the idea of Flock, they said that Film Buff talked about Flock's entire arc as being like a corruption arc. I like that. I think that for me, it's like the reverse of a redemption arc. Instead of Flock's character going from being this soldier on the battlefield that was the sole survivor and tried to revive their captain, you know, it sounds all good, but then when you figure out why he was trying to revive Erwin, you know, to make his life a living hell, and you're like, oh, and it's like this reverse redemption arc where Flock, instead of becoming a more morally, you know, gung-ho patriotic person, I mean, he kind of is nationalistic, but his character goes a very different direction. And I like that Isayama does that. It's different. Flock's character, for better or worse, I know I call him the Burger King, and he is the Burger King, but I love his character so much. I love to poke fun at him. I love to point out his flaws, but also recognize that he is a very intriguing character. In the last episode, he tries to Scooby-Doo the hell out of this whole thing and does not fall for Armin's plans. And that's a pretty good thing, because a lot of people have fallen for Armin's plans, but not Flock. So as much as I have disdain for him in many regards, I have to recognize that he is a very well-written character. And Isayama, he's probably one of my favorite characters Isayama's introduced into this story because of just the chaos and the insanity that he brings. And his voice actor, Ono, is perfect. Perfect voice acting this season with him. And then finally, Be Happy points out a couple of things. One, that there is a parallel in episode 25 where Gabby and Falco, they basically asked Jean to lend them their strength, saying, we need you to help stop or limit this genocide. Like, let's at least try to limit it or cease it from happening. And it's a parallel to Willie Tybur asking the world, lend me your strength and let's go stop parody. And so it's like you have on the one hand Willie Tybur trying to get the world to come together to commit a genocide, and then you have these two children who were part of the nation that was about coming together with the people that were going to get genocided and saying, let's stop it instead. And so it's a very interesting parallel. But they also noted that tying McGath's idea, and I wish I had this comment Be Happy when I was talking about episode 26, but you commented this for episode 25, so how could you have known? But McGath wanting to be remembered. I was like, oh yeah, throughout this series, McGath has constantly said, he's like in Warhammer, he's like, remember that I'm the one that took the first shot. He's like, remember that I did this. When we look back on history, I want to be, it seems like McGath has wanted to become like Helos, like this hero of Marley. And he wants to be remembered. And in the last episode, it's the neatest turn that he goes from wanting to be the hero of Marley to just being someone that did the right thing in front of a bunch of kids. And I'm like, that's so good that he hates the history of Eldia, but he loves and is attached to these two Eldian children. And that love that he has for them trumps the hatred that he has for Eldia. I was like, oh, that's so good. That makes me respect McGath's character a lot more, and it makes his actions in the last episode seem a little bit more justified. So thank you, Be Happy. I really appreciate that. But yeah, so one more episode after this. Oh, just gonna dread. So I poured myself some coffee and was like, it's fine. It's gonna be great. This penultimate episode. Armin's just shot two guys in the face. Things are going to hell in a handbasket. There are two Titans out in the middle of the port. We're trying not to get explosives around a bunch of boats to go off. Flock is clearly not going to care. I think the boat's going to get blown up. I think it's going to get blown up. Now, what our option B is, I wonder if they have an option B. I wonder if Kiyomi, Azumabito, if she's like, oh, well, that boat was there, but we have an option B. I'm like, I'm hoping that that's the case. Like, something else we can do or work with, right? I don't know. Maybe find a way to get to Hizuru. I don't know. I do not know, but I'm very curious to see what ends up happening. And that only took 15 minutes to get to the intro. Yeah. So I'm excited to start this episode. I hope y'all are too. So take a deep breath, y'all. We're going to see what's going to happen with episode 27 of season 4 of Attack on Titan here in 3, 2, 1. And I'll see y'all on the other side. Why? Isayama, why do you do this to me? Keith. Keith and McGath. And maybe Flock. They're dead. They all did in one episode. God, so Keith, a one-man show, bystander badass, ends up taking down a whole train by himself, and ends up him and McGath sacrificing themselves. We're going to talk about that scene. Oh my God. So, wow. So a lot happened in this. A lot. There was an after credit scene. A lot happened. Everything was crazy. And so we're going to the mainland where possibly the rumbling is coming to us. So in the most roundabout way. So in the weirdest of ways, it won't be hard to find Eren. That was the thing when they were like, how are we going to find Eren? I'm like, well, when you find the Colossal Titans, you just zoom around till you find Eren. He's kind of easy. He's hard to miss. But, oh my God. Okay. Damn. What do we do? So we'll get to like the whole after this, because there's a season finale after this. It's like, what are we going to do, y'all? But this episode, oh my gosh, what a penultimate episode. We resolved the port conflict, I guess, and in the craziest of ways, and then I can't believe we've lost McGath, that he gave himself up to save them. I was like, why is he staying behind? And then it makes sense, the reinforcements and the boat. He stayed behind because of the other ship. I didn't even consider the other ship. I didn't even think about the second ship in the dock. Didn't even think about it, but he's like, yeah, if they get the ship, then it's over. And so he stayed behind to keep them from getting that ship. And Falco taking action. We're going to talk about that. Keith. Oh my God. And then that end scene with Annie. Wow. Okay. This episode is so gut-wrenching. It's gut-wrenching because you have the entire time, there's all these callbacks. I kept thinking of Perfect Game. Throughout this entire episode. I was like, man, especially when Flock was like giving these battle cries. But I will note that the language he used and the language that Erwin used is distinctly different. And I do want to make note of that when we get to it. But I kept thinking back to Perfect Game, to the final charge that Erwin does towards the Beast Titan. And the parallels are there. But I do think there are some distinct differences between Flock's battle cry and his rally against the Titans versus Erwin's. And we'll talk about that. But man, and Falco transforming into this griffin. Falco turning into this, Falco Grice becoming this griffin-like bird thing. Of course, the moment he became like the Titan, the baby bird Titan, I was like, I want his Titan form. I really thought, it's funny, back in the recap for part 1, I thought that Falco was going to become the Beast Titan and would turn into a big bird. I was like, that'll be awesome. So I kind of get the best of both worlds. He gets to become the Jaw Titan, and he has the beak-like jaw, which is kind of cool. I like that. But then he also turns into the Jaw Titan, but he has like a bird arms and bird claw talons and everything. It's kind of beastly, which is interesting. I'm kind of about it. I like it. It fits his motif. But yeah, and so we see Daz like falling into the river and drowning, and we see Armin like reaching out his arm. Even after getting shot in the face, the guy still reached for his friend to try to save him. And I think that's a very symbolic thing in the moment that Isayama gives us, that even in the face of being harmed and being in danger because of his friends, Armin still has the compassion to reach for them. And I think that's going to be important tying to Aaron when we get to Aaron. And if they get there, that Armin, no matter what happens, Armin's still going to reach out for his friends and try to talk things out and try to find peace. So in all this, I'm going to put Armin over here. And we'll have Armin that no matter, because Armin kind of takes a side note. Y'all commented in the Discord about, we were talking about this episode, and several people were pointing out, it's ironic that Armin, who's always known for talking his way out of things and being the diplomat, the person that wants to talk things out, he effectively loses the ability to do that in these episodes. And so he isn't able to communicate. And so instead he tries to let his actions speak. So he tried to stop him. And so he's still, despite injury, he still reaches for his friend, right? Despite the friend hurting him, he still reaches out. He still shows compassion. And that, I think, is really important about his character moving forward, right? Especially if we get to this whole thing with Aaron, the fact that Armin still shows compassion even after all that. But, they say that war brings out the best and worst in people, and this episode is kind of embodiment of it. Again, there's no content warning in this episode, but you show us Samuel's face with 3 holes through it, show. Be consistent. I was like, oh God, it's rough. It's Roughsville. This whole episode is rough, and Connie just being like, but there's no time to dwell on it. There's just no time, because it's both sides are attacking people that they care about for reasons that they both have on either side. And it's one of those that hesitate and you die. It's one of those things. It's, oh my God. So with this episode, I will note with the Titans, there's times where the Titans animation looks really good, and there are times where the rotoscope thing looks a little odd, but whatever. At this point, it's it is what it is, right? But I have noticed, compared to other episodes this season, it does look a little bit different. And maybe because it's in the daylight, it's not a grungy tones like it was back in episodes 18 and 19. It's all bright and sunny out. Maybe that's why it looks different. But, oh my gosh. And then we go through the courtyard, and we go into the hallway there where McGath and all them are holed up. And we get the wonderful revelation that servicing the boat is not going to be an hour-long affair. No, it takes a day to service it before it can fly. I'm like, Asmobito, you guys need to step up your tech game. I didn't even think about that in the last episode. I was like, oh, they'll get there and they'll have it serviced in an hour. About an hour, they can hold them off for that long. It'll be fine. No, it's going to take 10 hours. Awesome. Great. So our issue with, we're going to talk about this whole rumbling thing. So the rumbling timeline. I was having major Dragon Ball Z Namek flashbacks. If you've ever watched Dragon Ball Z, there's an arc that's the Namek arc. And at the end of the Namek arc, our main hero Goku is fighting our antagonist Frieza. And in that story, the planet is set to blow up. And Frieza names some indeterminate amount of time, in 4 hours the planet's going to blow up. And it's how do you even know? And so I was having that moment with this. I was like, Hanji, have you sat down and done the math on this? Granted, geography is my worst subject. So if you tell me that it would take this long to cover this much distance, okay. And maybe Hanji has been sitting down thinking about this and mapping it out and trying to figure out in her head how long it would take. Maybe Hanji did sit down and do the math and was like, okay, yeah, no, if this happens, because that would be in Hanji's character to want to map things out to that extent. That would make sense. I could buy that Hanji's trying to do that. That all makes sense, and it comes out in the wash. But it's just funny that they're in 4 days, the world's going to be entirely ruined. And it's oh, that's not enough time at all to do anything. Oh no. So basically, this is insanity. It's insanity. It really is. So with the right equipment, we could shave it down to half a day. And they're like, wow, this would have been great to know before we barged in here. Again, going in without full scope of the plan. This was kind of a botched plan. Granted, it's all they had to go with, so they did what they could, but oh, this plan, this was a bad mission from the start. It was a bad mission from the start. It reminds me again a lot of Perfect Game in a weird way, because in Perfect Game you had the scouts and Erwin and them going into this situation knowing they were going into enemy territory, knowing that they didn't know full scale of what the enemy was planning and didn't know all the full details of what the situation was. And that led them to be ambushed and led to this big, massive battle. And that's kind of what's happened here in the weirdest of ways, except the enemy that's ambushed and everything is the Jaegerists, who are the people of Parody. So it's this weird comparison of these two different battles, and the same situation of not having all the information is pretty critical. So I'm gonna make a note about that. That the info is important. Information is important. I'm just going to make a little note and kind of pin that for the end of this discussion. But the fact that they didn't know that the boat takes half a day to service. So we've established that the boat, and that's a good thing. The boat, the airboat or the airship takes half to 1 day to service. And Magath's like, half a day at the best. You want us to hold the enemy off for that long and they're going to bring reinforcements. They're going to throw reinforcements at us. And people are like, and the Asmabita woman, it's like, we're supposed to defend the port when our Titans only last a couple of hours. Yep. We can't use Armin. Yeah. And Hanji's like, we'll be too late. The rumbling moves faster than a galloping horse. And so they'll plow through all obstacles. I mean, I guess that's where the speed comes from, because it's not that the Titans are going fast, but it's just there's nothing in their way. It's nonstop, and there's millions of them. So by the time the density of the rumbling, it's the density that makes it seem fast, because it's just there's so many moving at once nonstop that it seems like it never ends. So it's basically like if you were galloping on a horse. You wouldn't be able to get from one end to the other of all the Titans. That's insane. Yeah. And so in half a day, they'll raise 600 kilometers past the coast. So basically in that time, they're going to move over 600 kilometers past the coast, which would destroy Marley. Okay. Yeah. And so for them to flatten the entire continent, it will take just 4 days. Oh, okay, so it's the continent, not the world. Okay, so flatten the continent. Okay, that makes me feel a little bit better. Now, granted, we don't know how big this world is. It's mirroring our own, so it's just the continent. So flatten the continent in about 4 days. Okay. I was thinking the whole world, and I was like, wow, that's a lot of ground covered really quickly. But the continent, okay. So not the whole world, but still a very significant chunk in about 4 days. Okay. Makes sense. All right. I'm like, crap. Even if all goes right and we do stop Aaron and Magath just looks so awful, then it'll be too late for Liberio. So that's the thing in all of this. A big portion of the reason that Annie and Reiner and Magath and them were helping them to begin with was to save Liberio. It's too late. Like, they're not going to save Liberio. It's over for them. Like, Marley's going to get destroyed and all those Eldians as well. So, that's not good. And Hanji's like, there's no way. And so then Jean has this thing where they think back to the man in Liberio. I guess it's when they were hanging out and camped out in like getting ready to go and save Aaron back in Warhammer and Declaration of War. It shows them, like, it cuts to them in Marley in Liberio with the others. I'm like, okay, because you see that, well, that's John's ear. I didn't know if that guy had an armband or not, but there's this brief flash of them hanging out with that guy in Liberio. Okay. And our King John, there are some moments in this show where everybody's animated really good. So, get a picture of that. And Magath's just like, so even if we do get it to fly, we don't know Aaron's location. All right. That'll add more time. Again, the only thing is, yeah, I'm pretty sure Aaron's going to be pretty noticeable. when you go find the rumbling. But the question is, there's millions of Titans. So finding him in the midst of all those Titans, yeah, that would take some time. So I get what Magath is getting at. Because, you know, from the outset, you'd say, it's not like we can defend the port that long to begin with. Again, Magath, you know, Annie has a breakdown when she finds out that Liberio is going to be destroyed. Magath just, he looks shocked, but he thinks about the next thing. He's like, we can't defend that port that long to begin with. Like, he's already thinking of the next thing. Like, he's like Hanji, committed to the cause. If Liberio's gone, there's still other people that we... And that kind of ties back to what Hanji says at the very end. Magath was committed to saving people he didn't even know. But he gave his life for them. It's just not. And then that's when Kiyomi says that she has an idea. So we get this. So we have the continent here. The continent. And it does look like Africa upside down and backwards, right? It's kind of cool how that looks. South of here in the Marleyan coastal city of Odaya, we own a hangar. Okay, so there's a coastal city like in the little nook there. In the nook. So we have Odaya, right? We have Odaya that is about, that's south of there. Okay. They have a hangar. And from there, Kiyomi says that the flying boat could be serviced there. And so we have the 5 engineers and her. We could depart at once, towing it behind us. And so, yeah, so it's going in complete preparations in Odaya. Yeah. A coastal. And so, yeah, Hanji's like, well, that's going to put us right in the thick of it. That's going to put us right where the rumbling's going to go through. And it's like, well, you'll be able to find Aaron then. So problem solved. And then Hanji also says that, wait a minute, okay, we could get to Odaya before the rumbling does. And then, but it's a gamble if it'll stand for half a day. And I love that Hanji narrows their eyes. They're like, a gamble, huh? I mean, Erwin Smith was known for gambling, so why not pick up where he left off at, huh? And Magath's like, well, we got to get out of here first. And saying, does the ship have coal? I'm really happy with the whole ship thing, because I wondered with the ship in the port, I'm like, I wonder if the boat did... I was wondering about if the airship gets blown up, could they take the boat to get off the port just to get away, just to get off of Parity? Because if things got too shady, would they just use it to get off of Parity? And they do, but I was like, well, then where are they going to go? So I was wondering that. I'm like, if they took the boat, where would they end up going to? And there is a solution. I'm like, oh, Kiyomi, she knew what to do. And so, interesting. But we have that little port city. Okay. And so Magath sends them, saying he's going to protect them, and he's going to go get the captain and the others. All right. So Jean's going to go get the captain. Hanji's going to go get the others and tell Mikasa, and Magath is going to go and get the guys to the ship to take off with it. I love that Magath is in the Wings of Freedom, the Survey Corps jacket. It's kind of like when God, man, don't let any Marleyans wear the Wings of Freedom. Don't let any Marleyan wear the Wings of Freedom, because you have Peak is on my death flag list now, because you had Galliard that wore the Wings of Freedom jacket and he's dead. Magath wore it and he's dead. Peak's got it on. Get that coat off of her. She doesn't need it now. I'm like, no, I don't want Peak to die. Oh my gosh. So yeah, anyway, we're going to skip the OP. So we go back to the port and everything, and man, Mikasa just had a field day, right? Mikasa was just like, I'm in a bad mood. I've had a bad day. I hate this, and I'm just going to take out all my frustrations. Like, Mikasa just going to town. And I love she clings to Annie's, like, hair. It's so weird, because back in season 1, we had this whole thing where Annie and Mikasa were always very much at odds with each other, and they were always kind of like trying to fight with each other. And at the very end in the post-credit scene, Mikasa is the one to like put her hand on Annie's shoulder. Like, she's the one to support her. And that's really cool. I like that that's where their characters have gone to. I think that's interesting. So we're going to tie old Mikasa and Annie. We're going to tie them right here together. There's lots of pairs in this episode. Lots of pairs. But yeah, so I like that we're leaving to service the boat on the mainland. And Annie's like, on the mainland? What are we doing that for? And Mikasa's like, no time! Gotta go kill some other people. I do like the animation of as Kiyomi is running, she has her skirt lifted up as she's running. That's just a neat little touch there. But man, she's just like lifting her skirt up to go. And of course, they're flocking them are saying to shoot the engineers, shoot the mechanics. Because they think at this point that they're still trying to service the airplane. Because I don't know, I guess Flock and them don't realize, maybe they know how long it takes to actually service it. Maybe they don't. But Flock orders them to shoot at the mechanics. But then, oh man, you know what, Flock? You got real lucky that Mikasa got kicked the one guy right beside you, because that looked like it hurt. Very much so. And then Hanji comes in to get the other ones, and Flock's like, what the hell? And then says, you damn traitors. And they didn't get him. Where are the Asmo? And again, much like in the last episode, Flock is thinking about what's happening. He's like, where are the Asmobito going? What could be worth the risk? And then he thinks of the boat. Yeah, he thinks of the ship. That's what they're there for. And asking about Reiner. And people get eaten in this episode. I really, it's always weirded me out when the Titan shifters eat people, because when they're in pure Titan form, it's all instinctual. They don't know what they're doing. They just eat people, and that's like an instinct animalistic reaction. But here, when it's the Titan shifters, they know what they're doing. So Reiner and Peak, like, eating people, it's like, like when you turn back into human form, it's not your actual mouth, so it's not the same. But man, yeah, no, they ate people. And then poor Reiner just gets the snot shot out of him in this. Like, he just gets thunderspeared to no end. It's kind of crazy. And there's some really good animation of, like, people getting slung around. And Magath being the best gunman in Marley, taking people out. Oh my God. But it's crazy. And so they decide to forego the Titans to try to go after the Asmobito people. And Annie, again, like, gets her arm blown off, like, has hands and chunks of limbs. This is probably the most expressive that Annie's been, I think, in this entire series. I don't think Annie has been this expressive. So Annie being expressive of her emotions, and Mikasa, we'll get to Mikasa comforting her. We'll get to that at the very end. But man, it's just wild. And like losing hands, and Magath being like, let's hurry up and go and get out of here. And just, it's so weird because it's like such a, like seeing the Jaegerists fight them, it again reminds me of Perfect Game, where you have all the scouts fighting the Beast Titan, and it's like the Titan has been throughout this entire series, the Titans have been the enemy, and now we are kind of like intended to root for them here, and it's so crazy. It's such a weird turn, right? And Reiner taking a hit for Annie, like taking the thunder spears to the face. I come on, Reiner. So you have put Reiner over here. That Reiner taking the hit for Annie. Again, tying back to Door of Hope and back in the early part of season 4, part 1, where Reiner and Annie were at odds with one another, and here he like steps in to save her. It's really good. And Flock, are they seriously going to service it on the mainland? So Flock's figured it out. Flock, being smart, he has figured out that, and I want to say this, Sacha and some others have noted, they were talking about Flock, and they're like, man, Mappa really animates him well at some point. And I was like, really? No, Flock looks really good in this episode. It's like he's going to go out on top, right? Our Burger King. But then, yeah, it just, he's trying to figure everything out, and Reiner's face is like all blown to hell, and his hands blown off. Like they're just, for the record, the way they draw Flock in this episode 2, it's weird to say, but they draw him really thick in this episode. I was looking at him landing on the rooftop, I'm like, man, they gave him some definition, some muscle definition. All right, you can tell he's been working that ODM gear. This may be the last time I talk about Flock in this series, so I'm gonna go out with a bang, right? Oh, if he's dead, I am gonna be kind of sad. He had death flags on him ever since the last couple episodes ago, but it's still sad. I'm gonna talk about Flock a lot in this episode because it may be the last time we do so. They're taking the ship, and so here's the thing: the way that Flock words things, right? The way that the way that he words things. So I want to talk about Flock. Talk about Flock versus Erwin. All right, and their rhetoric. Their rhetoric in this scene, because I'm thinking of Erwin like Perfect Game and around season 3, part 2, and then a season later with this. So the way Flock describes things is that they're taking the ship to kill Aaron. Okay, and I want to also talk about Erwin versus, I'm going to just say Armin and Co. Okay, so you have the ship to kill Aaron, which we know that they're not necessarily going to kill Aaron. They haven't come out and said it. Annie asked the question at the end again, like, what if we have to? But they're taking the ship to find Aaron. Okay, so it's a little different. But, and then Erwin, back in Perfect Game, was talking about how they're trying to take Aaron. They're trying to take Aaron to use him. Okay. So a little different language, a little different rhetoric. We've got to sink it at all costs. And then it shows them all running back towards the ship. And he says, if Aaron dies, Parody will drown in a sea of blood. So it's basically this threat to all of them that if Aaron dies, then Parody drowns in a sea of blood. Okay. And that's, a lot of you have pointed out in the comments, and Jean has pointed out too in the series, that it's going back to that Willie Tybur logic of him rallying the world against Parody. I would also say that Willie Tybur's speech was talking about Aaron being the villain of the world and rallying against Aaron. So it's funny. It's funny that the how the tides turn. That as long as you were in like a place of victory, there was no worries. Like, oh, kill everybody else. It's fine. We don't care. Like, murder, commit omnicide. It's fine as long as we're safe. But the moment that safety is in jeopardy, it's like, oh, well, they'll come and get revenge on us. It's like, yeah, no shit. Yeah, I can't imagine why. One of those things. But so you have this thing here with Flock telling them all this. And again, Armin's whole thing is wanting to create a dialogue and possibly, try to create understanding for Parody. And I know people in the comments are gonna be like, well, that's not realistic. And I'm like, well, damn it, that's their point. I think that's their point. I'm just gonna write it out here. I'm not gonna argue it anymore at the moment. We'll talk about it in the recap, but it's what they're aiming for. They don't want to commit omnicide. They want to, I'm thinking that Armin's in-game plan is to create a dialogue and come to the table, kind of like what they've been doing the last few episodes with little small things, right? Now you can argue that's going to be very, very difficult because if the world, views Aaron and the rumbling stuff as a potential threat again, there's lots of different factors. And again, in the recap, I want to lay it all out and go through everything in one giant fell swoop. I want to see the last episode of the season before we do that though. But that's kind of, at least, I'm going to put a question mark. That's an idea. And with Erwin's thing, he's basically saying the idea that Erwin's whole deal was that he was telling the people kind of the same thing, that he didn't say Parody was going to drown in a sea of blood if Aaron died, but he was saying that this whole thing, everything was from freedom beyond the walls. That was Erwin's thing. Erwin was not necessarily saying, Erwin, I don't think ever said in season 3, part 2, that, because at that point they didn't know if there was humanity beyond the walls. They didn't even know. So they weren't saying oh, if Aaron gets taken by the enemy, then they'll come at us and destroy everything. There's violence. Erwin didn't really say that. He was like, we need to find out what's beyond the walls. Erwin's whole thing, it's kind of like a combination of both Flock and Armin together, is that Erwin was like, we need to find what's beyond the walls. We need to discover and see that freedom beyond the walls. And it's kind of saying that, if we don't, we aren't going to have the opportunity. So it's kind of a weird mix between Flock and Armin in an odd way. But Flock says the world will seek revenge and butcher your parents' siblings. All I could think about in this moment was Gaston from Beauty and the Beast. That Flock was sitting there going with his torch. He's like, he'll come for your children in the middle of the night. It would just seem like that. And all these people, of course, look disturbed, because if someone was telling you that, yeah, if we don't stop these people, they're going to come and destroy and butcher our parents, siblings, and children, I think that I would fight too. So Flock is just inciting the crowd of Jaegerists, saying that and here's the thing, saying that they will get revenge and kill your families. So with Flock, like, there is no communication on the table. The world's not going to negotiate or have any communication. If any of the world is left alive, they're going to kill us. They don't understand us. It's what we talked about in the last episode, and the episode before that, is that the idea that I think Isayama was proposing is that you want to try to communicate and understand one another so that you don't do this. So that this doesn't happen. But it's human nature to assume that this will happen. So Flock is very much, and you get where Flock is coming from, because he's thinking, well, shit, if the rest of the world isn't destroyed, yeah, they're going to be mad at us and come and destroy us. And I'm like, yes, that is probably the case. And these people are terrified. And Flock just used it to rally. He's like, give your hearts. And we don't see the Jaegerists do the same thing, right? We don't see the Jaegerists do that. But he basically is saying, give your hearts, to make sure that doesn't happen. It's like, it's oof. But yeah, so Jean and them, they went to go get the cart titan. And Falco and them, I like that Falco's like, you're kidding. And Gabby's like, wait, what's happening? And so they're going after the boat. They're aiming for the boat. At this rate, those two won't last till it's ready. And Yelena just kind of looks a little, I like that you see Yelena looking a little disheveled and Levi's behind her. Kind of, I don't know if Levi's facing the other way or not, but we don't really see his reaction. And Falco thinks, well, what can I do? Because Falco's like, they are not going to last. So Falco gets this idea. Put this over here. Falco gets this idea that he could help out, right? It's a terrible Falco. So Falco gets the idea that, well, should I stand here and do nothing? Again, the idea that get your hands dirty, right? Falco's like, I have this ability. Do I just sit here and do nothing, or do I help out? And Pieck tries to get him to not do it. He says, I've got to fight too. I can use the Jaws power. And Pieck says, no, bad idea. The first transformation never goes well. And it seems to go all right, except for the fact that he can't control it. And that's interesting, because it kind of, the whole time that Falco was having that transformation, it reminded me of Eren back in season 1. It reminded me a lot of Eren in that Falco takes the initiative, saying that I have this power to fight and help my friends. Kind of like Eren, right? And that the first transformation, Pieck says it never goes well. First transformation, not good. And in Eren's case, he loses his limbs and he basically gets, mauled by the other Titans. So that's kind of true in case in point. But the idea that Falco, and then we're going to see later that Falco also struggles to transform at first. He's sitting there like whittling at his hand. He doesn't sit there and bite his hand, but he has like a little knife or blade that he's found, and he struggles to transform at first, just like Eren did as well. Right? But at the end, he does it to save his friends. So a lot of parallels with Eren and Falco in this. Yeah. And Pieck's like, I'll take y'all to the boat and then I'll go back and fight. So I like that Pieck is like, no, I'll go do it. I'm not going to let them all face off alone. And Falco's like, and I like that Falco's like, well, but I can still do something. If only Galliard was here instead of me. And I was going to comment about that in the reaction, and then stuff was going on. I was like, what would that be like if Galliard was there? Because I would imagine Galliard would rush in to help, and Galliard's good at close combat, so actually he might have been useful here. But again, that's like the whole Erwin and Armin debate. There's no point in debating about it, because the fact of the matter is that Galliard is dead. Erwin is dead. We have Armin, we have Falco. So we have our cinnamon buns have survived. So we've got to deal with that. And that's what we have to work with. He's like, he wouldn't sit around worrying about what to do. No, you are very correct. I love that Falco's like, he'd be hasty. I'm like, Porco would be. But in this case, it'd be justified, right? So I like that Falco's like, I'm not just going to sit here. I'm going to take action. And Peake's like, well, damn it. I've got to get you to the ship. She's like, what can we do? Just can't stop now. Mm-mm. So yeah, they go light the boiler. I love it. And they get there. And that's when he says, oh, Connie. And he said he's hit in the chest. Ugh. And face, but he'll heal up soon. And then Connie heads out. He's like, I'll guard the ship. I'm glad that Connie, he had that moment and Connie's just like on an adrenaline high. It's just like, he's like, I've got a mission to do. I can't let Connie and the others die. Like at this point, he's already shot these others. So it's like, at this point, I've just got to do what I got to do. And I'm glad that Connie didn't let what was going on, like, steal his resolve and like hurt it, right? He just knows what must be done. And I also like that Peake, when she comes up, has like the hand over Anya on them, like hiding them from in there, like shielding them. That's really cute. Commander McGath, Falco. And McGath's like, what? No! Not Falco! Not our cinnamon bun. Also, props to Anyan. Like, putting in the extra work. Like, sitting there being like, we'll get this ship going. I freaking love Anyan. I'm like, yes, please. But then there comes the locomotive, the reinforcements. Unless we do something, we'll be dying instead of leaving. And it reminded me a lot of Midnight Train. Like, there's that same thing about it. But the tracks blow up. For a hot second, I don't know why, but for a hot second, I thought that Falco had transformed and had went and destroyed the train, because I kept thinking of the Jaw Titan in episode 1 of part 1, where at Fort Slava, he just took the tracks off and the train off. That's what I thought of. So for a hot second, I was like, how did Falco get all the way over there? I thought for a second that Falco had transformed into the Jaw Titan and like leapt over there like Ymir. But no, it was Keith. Keith saved them. We'll talk about that. But I was like, I am a man. Last episode, I was like, I thought that maybe Keith had been the one that spied on them from the window, but then I lost hope, but then hope was restored, and I was like, oh, okay, Keith was there. And Hanji's like, oh! I just like the animation of Hanji, like, okay, the reinforcements are gone. That was convenient for us. And then Flock, I love his expression. The whole train of reinforcements was taken out. Like, his expression is so good. And then, oh, Falco with the stake, sitting there trying to get his hand. Oh, honey. I'm like, you just have to cut it. You don't have to do a lot. And then Jean. I like this idea of Jean. I like the idea of Jean meeting up with Falco. There's been like a running thing with them where the first time Jean saw Falco was when he aimed the Thunder Spear at him in Peake and it intentionally missed. And now Jean and Falco have constantly ran into each other, which is interesting. I like that Falco looks down at his hand and he's like, oh, you didn't see anything. He's like, what are you doing, Falco? Get on the ship. And I love he tries to like hide his hands behind his back, like, oh, don't mind me. Falco. He's like, sure. And that's when we see, God, Annie's head just drops. And the hands are off. Like, they're massacred. Like, the Titans are, Reiner and Annie are just like at death's door. They're like barely hanging on. Like, what the hell? It's the Thunder Spears make it a problem, because I think of back in season 1, I think of Annie and Reiner, like they could easily take on the Scouts or anybody. But then we introduced the Thunder Spears in season 3, and it's like, man. And I never thought that type of weapon would be used in this way in this episode. So it's neat that Isayama took something designed for this one season and keeps bringing it back, and its use evolves over time. It's rather interesting. But God, he's like, my body won't move. They're spent. And Annie's just like, I can't see a thing. Annie looks disturbed. She's like, my head just came off. Close to death. Not good. Like, they're just about to die. And it's the craziest thing. Like, back in season 1 up through season 4, we as the audience, we'd be following the Scouts and we'd probably be rooting for them to take Reiner and Annie out. But now that the situation is much more complicated, it's like, wow, well, are we still rooting for them to take them out? Like, it's crazy. And then Connie just going through everything. And I want to note that Flock's whole thing about the traitors, that line traitors, I keep thinking back to Warrior. I keep thinking back to the episode of Warrior where you had Aaron, when Reiner was grabbing him and dragging him down the wall, he was like, you damn traitors. And my, how the tables have turned. My, how the situation is different. It's like, wow, it's something. And Connie, Mikasa just having a field day. Mikasa just doing melee mode, like it's over, it's on. Like they just really loved animating. And Jean helping Mikasa. Okay, I want to throw this out there. I know back in episodes 25, everybody was like, well, that's Mikasa in the vision. It is. You can see the scar on the cheek. I'm glad y'all told me that. And I think a lot of people ship Jean and Mikasa. And I'll talk about it in the recap too, but there's a part of me that wants to ship Jean with Mikasa. I'm like, Jean's a great guy. He's our king. He'd be so good for Mikasa. And I want Jean to be happy. And him saving Mikasa in this moment, shooting that one to save her life, I'm like, girl, get yourself that king. My only hesitation is that Jean has always been Aaron's body double. So, in the weirdest of ways, I'm like, would there be a complex there where Jean would like psych himself out and be like, does Mikasa only like me because I'm Aaron's body double? Would that be the case? That's the only thing preventing me from like getting all aboard the Jean Mikasa ship, is because I'm like, would he think that she only likes him because he's Aaron's double? I'm like, ugh. That's the only thing that keeps me from like totally getting on board. But if you ship Jean and Mikasa, I get it. And this episode, him helping her, I'm like, I get it. That's kind of the reason I lean more towards Jean and Peak, because there's not that Aaron issue, and Peak will not associate. Jean looks nothing like Porco. Acts. Some people compared Jean and Porco, but I always compared Porco with Connie. So I don't see Porco and Jean having anything in common. So I'm like, that's safe. But the whole thing with Aaron and then Jean and Mikasa, I'm like, would there be that comparison ever pop up? And is that right? I don't know. But if you ship them together, I won't judge you. I definitely see it. And when they said hesitate and will never stop the rumbling, I thought when he said hesitate, I was like, hesitate and you die. Because that's pretty much in this series, if you have a gun in your hand and you hesitate to pull the trigger, it's going to get pulled on you. And it's like, whew. But man, that Mikasa like taking the blood and wiping it off her face. Oh my God. Mikasa just had like, and then Pete coming up out of the house like a dang Pac-Man. Just, whew. It's wild. And yeah, Peak and then it keeps shooting Peak. And yeah, Peak's got a lot of endurance. Like a bullet's not going to stop her. And then Flock is like just seeing that everything is going awry. And he's like, I know that this is messed up. He says, take down the traitors with our ODM gear. Okay. Nail the cart with thunder spheres and attack together. And it's so wild. It's like we saw everything happen in Declaration of War in the Warhammer Titan episode, and all the island devils coming together. And here it's just a parallel of that, only it's in the daytime instead of night. It's crazy. And Peak is surprisingly fast. I forget how agile Peak is. It's kind of crazy that the Jaw Titan and the Cart Titan, and I like the Peak's like, for crying out loud. Like everybody's firing these thunder spears at me. And then we get the shot of Hanji surrounded. And Mikasa just like blood everywhere. Connie's surrounded as well. Jean is like, doesn't know which one to aim at. He's like, crap, who do I shoot first? And then they say, defend our island to the death, our country. And Isayama makes it so difficult, right? Because there's a part of you that gets why all the Jaegerists are doing this. And why Flock and them are doing this. And it's to defend their homeland. And it's hard because you get it. You understand where they're coming from. And it's like, man. And we've spent 4 seasons defending parity and being all for our characters defending their homeland from the Titans that were coming in from the outside. But now it's like you have the Jaegerists and Flock, but you also have our protagonists that are seeing a picture bigger than itself. Seeing that it's not just parody that needs focus on, it's the world. And it's the greater good. And yeah, for better or for worse, we need to go talk to Aaron and we've got to get off this island. And the problem with it all is, to be honest, if they'd sat down and been able to talk with Flock, yeah, it probably wouldn't have worked because Flock is Flock, right? Probably would not have worked. But if they could have sat down with all of the Aegris and Flock and said, look, we're taking this ship, we're going to go talk to Aaron. Because, again, we bring up that big conundrum. Flock's like, they'll go kill Aaron. They're taking the ship to kill Aaron. I'm like, how? How are they going to kill Aaron? That's the big question. Even if they go to kill him, how are they even doing that? How does that even work? He's huge. Aaron is enormous and has millions of colossal titans surrounding him that I'm sure he can order to protect him at any given moment. So we have like 6 people against millions of colossal titans. All right. But they're doing it anyway because it's worth trying. It's worth trying to get a hold of Aaron and talk to him, right? It's worth trying to come to the table and do something. But when Flock's like, oh, they'll kill Aaron if we let him go, I'm like, if they just had a chance to talk, we haven't even talked this out. That was Marco's dying words. We haven't even talked this out. That, no, the Jaegerists, none of them came to the table. And I know that at this point, it seems like it would be futile. Like, it wouldn't matter. But the point is, if they had even tried to talk and create some understanding, who knows? In the words of Freckled Ymir, who knows? But it's so complicated now because you have the Aegirists defending parity, and you have Armin and Co being like, we need to get to Aaron, and if you're in our way, we'll have to get rid of you. So step out of the way and let us go, or we'll fight. And it's like immovable object meets unstoppable force, one of those scenarios. But, oh my gosh, the desperation and all this. And Reiner, like, the desperation, the Titans are, Reiner and Annie, they are spent. And then Falco. And I love as Falco and Hanji are going at the same time. Falco holding up the hand in a very Aaron-like gesture, holding up the hand, being like, I can do it. And then reaching up towards the air, like in the OP for part 1. Like Falco reaching up towards the sun and has the cut hand. Oh, I love it. And it kind of ties back to season 3, part 1, the OP, where it's the hand cut there too. Ooh, I love it. I love it. I love it. But yeah, then Falco transforms into this Birdman. Birdman! I'm going to call him Birdman from now on. All right, information available for public disclosure. Enemies and allies. When Titans were the greatest threat, Titans were the enemy. When countries were the greatest threat, countries were the enemy. For as long as people hold firm to different beliefs, there will always be an enemy. Oh, I love that. Okay. Damn. And it looks like Levi holding the gun, which is interesting. The hairstyle is Levi's, which is interesting. But for as long as people hold firm to different beliefs, there will always be an enemy. And that goes back to pride. Man. Oh, that line, enemies and allies. That's so good. Because it's so true. Like, as long as you hold firm to that belief and you're uncompromising, then there will always be an enemy. Yeah, and it just shows how the enemy changes from moment to moment, depending on what you believe, right? And that's the big theme of the story, too. A big theme in this series is that, anyone can be a god or a devil. Anyone can be an ally or an enemy. It just depends on what you believe. And so, yeah, that's what makes this so complicated, is just like in our own world, we all have, someone commented saying that one person's terrorist is another person's freedom fighter. Like, yeah, that's again, tying to this whole thing. It's all about perspective and what is being valued. And so that does make it complicated. And so again, I see where everybody, based on this last half of this series, I see where people's opinions can go in all sorts of directions based on your background, based on your experience, based on your favorite characters, your beliefs. It's crazy, right? And Isayama is saying, yeah, this is complicated. It's hard. Here we are. And, oh, I love that, though. That's such a great line. It's probably my favorite information available for public disclosure card of the season. Look at that. All right. And so, God, it should have been foreshadowing of Gabby with the gun. Should have been foreshadowing. I didn't even think about it. I just thought that Gabby was going to defend the ship. But, God, and so you see the mouth inside the jaw, which is really cool. Because, like, Ymir's jaw titan was just Ymir's jaw, like her actual face. And with Porco and Marcel, it was like a helmet, kind of. But with Falco, you see a face underneath. It looks very Digimon. But I kind of like it. I like Birdman. Birdman Falco. and has like the talons and the big wispy long hair, and kind of has elfin ears. Like Aaron has elfin ears. What? Oh my god, yes please. He went from being baby bird, pure Titan, to having elven ears and being the Birdman Titan. Oh my god. I'm all about this. Again, elven ears. Why? Tying to Aaron. And Peek's just like, well, shit, that's interesting. I love it. Peek's like, why couldn't I have cool feathers? And Jean's like, okay, they broke formation. And Kai's like, it's now. And Hanji says, or never. And Mikasa like, don't have to tell me twice. Mikasa and Falco doing a waylay. And man, Falco at this point, like with the red eyes and everything, like the red glowing eyes, Falco is in like a state of just pure instinct, I think, at this point. Because like Peek said, the first transformation never goes well. I do want to take a picture of Falco staring down Flock. I've confused Falco and Flock's names this entire series. So it seems only fitting that they have they have a confrontation at this point. And Flock is there with the thunder spears, and Falco has the talons and looks like a bird. Really cool. And then like just roars, and Flock's like, that design is shit. Burger King crown. I'm making a meme out of this one shot. Just y'all wait. Oh my god. And he's like, damn it. There's more Titans. And Hanji goes to, oh my gosh. Hanji goes to catch up with Flock and then cuts the cheek. Oh, cuts the cheek. Oh, that shot, that animation of Flock versus Hanji in that moment is so good. Oh, that's so good. Oh my gosh. And just kicking Hanji aside. Oh my god. The animation of Flock trying to get away from Falco is amazing. I freaking love this. And goes under Peek, fires a thunder spear at Peek's mouth, and gets out of there and goes to aim for the ship. Oh my gosh. It all comes down to this. If I can put a hole in the hull, then Flock would have saved them. And like that animation was incredible of Flock going towards the ship. It was so good. And then Peek's like, no! And Jean's like, damn it, no! And Mikasa's like, oh my god. And everybody's like, welp. And Flock saying, the one who will save Eldia is me. That Flock is the hero of Eldia. Okay. And then that is a big difference too between Flock and Armin, because at the end of the day, both Erwin and Armin, you could argue that both of them simultaneously, neither of them. I know Armin's whole thing was in the episode called Hero, but Armin didn't view himself as a hero. He didn't say, if I take down Bertolt, Parody is saved. He said, if I take down Bertolt, it will give an opening for Aaron and Erwin and them to save Parody. It'll give an opening for them to save the world, to save our world. And Erwin's whole thing was, Erwin was not the hero. Erwin's like, I'm no hero. He's like, I'm going to lead us to death and we're going to die, but we're going to die to save others, right? Like, I don't believe that Erwin and Armin's actions in Perfect Day through Midnight Sun were specifically because they themselves wanted to be the quote-unquote hero. They were just doing all they could in the moment. But they never vocalized that, right? They were not the hero. They were just paving the way for someone else to become the hero. They were just like, we're just pawns on the chessboard, paving the way for someone else to come in and become the hero of Parody. But Flock in this moment says, the one who will save Eldia is me. So, and the sad thing about it is that Flock is genuine about that. He thinks that, yeah, he's going to save Parody, his home. And it's hard to fault him for that. It really is, because you're like, we all could be in the same boat as these characters, and we could all be in the same boat as Flock. I don't like Flock, but I respect his character and what he's saying here. Like, in Flock's mind, this all makes sense. This is what he's been meant to do. But you know what? And yeah, he says he'll all be... And God, he goes there, and who... I thought it was McGath that fired the shot. But, okay, I want to see where... It got him in the shoulder. It got him in the shoulder and fired the thunder sphere, and it missed. And it was Gabby. And it got him right in the shoulder there. And he landed into the lake. Huh. So, I don't know. I don't know if I should count Flock as the dead or not, because we don't... I put a question mark beside him, because he was shot in the shoulder, but that's not a lethal point. It wasn't the heart or anything, or the headshot. It was there. So, he fell in the water, but he could live. He could survive. So, I'm going to put a question mark by Flock. We don't know for sure if he's dead or not yet. But it was Gabby. Funny that it was Gabby that shot Flock, and she was the one that he wanted to toss from the airship. And Jean and them didn't let him. Man, the foreshadowing of the foreshadowing with Jean, Flock, Falco, and Gabby has come full circle in that you had Jean meeting up with Falco and not killing Falco, and then it all coming back around to Falco saving them, later on. And then you have Flock, Jean convincing Flock to not throw Gabby from the airship, and then it all comes back around, and Gabby's the one to shoot him. Oh, God. It's wild. It's wild. This episode's wild. And then Mikasa. Mikasa just doesn't stop. The Ackerman blood is like, nope, here's what we do. They just wanted to animate the hell out of Mikasa in this episode, because they were like, we haven't had a good action scene with Mikasa in a while. Let's just let her have a melee and go crazy. Like, she's just decapitating people left and right. This thing where she shoots the decapitated body of the guy and then does the sword through him, like, what? What now? And then, like, fires the thunder spheres and jumps off the roof. And then it blows up and the blood rains down on her. The blood raining down on her reminded me of season 1, where in the OP, the blood rains down on Armin, and then he, like, opens his eyes and there's the candle flickering up in the background. That's what it reminded me of. And then she just, like, looks over. Oh my gosh, like, Mikasa. Like Mikasa Ackerman. Do not mess with this woman. Oh, again, I think it's important to show Mikasa is a threat, a very lethal one-woman army, because if anybody, here's the thing, if anybody could fight Eren, it's Mikasa, which is the most ironic of ironic things. If anybody could take on Eren and the Founding Titan, it's Mikasa, because the Founding Titan can't control Mikasa. So I'm like, Eren, you wanted her to hate you, and she knows. I think she's seen through that in a big extent, but you sure you wanted her to hate you? Like, it's oof. And I know that by this point, Eren's actions were to just distance Armin and her from him, but it's still the fact of the matter that it happened, and it's like, it's God, Mikasa in this episode. Like, if the person with a lot of blood on their hands right now is Mikasa, and she's like, I don't care. I'll do what has to be done. And that again ties to the whole Ackerman thing. And so Anyan's like, let's get out of here. Let's go before they decide to come back. And then, but Falco is on a rampage. And I like that Pieck decides to, like the whole port is just covered in blood. There's just blood everywhere, all over the port. Everything, it's just a massacre. It's somebody's gonna show up at the port and be like, what happened here? It's just, but yeah, Falco, like taking his jaw and like trying to like bite at her nape like a damn bird. Like, oh my God. And Pieck's like, no. And then Magath's like, hold him still. Again, here's the funny thing in all of this. Magath jumps up to get Falco out and slices through and does it with pinpoint precision. Like Magath has done this before. Magath knows, because if you think about it, Magath's followed these warrior crews since they were kids. So with the other Titan shifters, like during their first transformation, he probably knows firsthand what's happening. And so he's like, no, we'll get him out. It's okay. And he saves Falco. But he's done this before enough that he knows what to do. I'm like, oh, wow. And Mikasa's like, And then, Pieck holding him down, and he's like, you're all right now, Falco. You did well. And I love that Mikasa looks up at Magath and Falco. And I feel like, again, tying back to season 1 with Eren, I feel like she sees Magath holding Falco, and it reminds her of when Eren first came out from behind his Titan and was like there, and they were like, oh my gosh, like it's very reminiscent of that. What a weird time that was. Back in season 1. What a weird time, because that was all new. But Magath's just holding him so gently. Like, Magath is the meme that's gently holds, and it's Falco. Oh my god, Magath. And Falco's just like, what happened? I just went on a trip. And like, yeah, the whole port, it's just blood and smoke. It's absolutely wild. And it shows them like carrying off everybody. Hanji has Peak, Magath has Falco, Jean and Connie have Reiner, and Annie and Mikasa are together. Oh, bless his heart. And he gives Falco to Anyan. And he says, I'll hold the rear. And at that point, I was like, Magath's gonna sacrifice himself? No. And Anyan's like, damn it. I'm like, no. And so they leave with the boat, with the airboat, with the explosive still strapped to it. I guess they didn't have time to get it off. But it's like Falco has the little jaw lines like Porco did, along with the others. And I love that Peak's holding his head. Like, it's so soft. And Commander brought Falco back. It was a close call. Aw. And then saying, where's Commander Magath? And so she didn't know. And then Peak says, it's General now. Oh, like repeating what he said to her. And he walks away from them Titans. Like, all the Titans are just, like, fuming there. And him walking away, like, running away from them. And Johnny, he's like, it's the enemy, not all of them left. Oh. And here's the thing. Then Keith comes in. And y'all are going to think I'm crazy. But you shouldn't be surprised at this point. But did Magath and Keith just become a ship? Did this just happen? There's a moment between, and I'm going to talk about it later in a little bit. There's a moment that I'm like, what is this? We've been making these comparisons to Keith and Magath this whole season. Magath has always been like the Keith of the warrior crew. He was the one that was with those kids from the start, training them up to be soldiers, and he cares about them. And here we see that Keith feels the same way about his cadets. Oh. And you have a man that's a bystander and a man that was a general. Like, you have the man that had been solidifying his self-importance, and this other man that had solidified that he was nothing special, and they come together. It's a tale as old as time, song as old as rhyme. Oh. But are you the one who took out the reinforcements? And he's like, and Keith's like, that's right. Oh my God. Why didn't you board the ship? And he says, because this other ship over here, it's a captured Marleyan cruiser. If it's fast enough to catch their ship and sink it, so I can't just leave it here. So he was gonna, at first I was like, Keith and, at first I thought the two of them like get in that boat and just go after him. So I thought, but two men can't run an entire ship. That's not realistic, right? You need a crew to run it. You need at least 5 or 6. The two of them can't run the ship alone. They can't fire it up with the coal with enough time to fight off the reinforcements and to fight off the other Jaegerists and get out of there. There's just no time, right? The ship would get blown up anyway, or they'd get captured and the ship would be used to go after them. So it makes sense why he had always intended to stay there and blow it up. That had been his goal from the start. He just had to get to it first. Oh, I can't leave it here. And Keith's like, I'll give you a hand. Oh, and so then they get into the explosives where all the guns and ammunition are. Oh, and this scene is incredibly animated. Like the shadows and everything, the animation's really great. It's just like, we got some extra budget. You want to animate Keith and Magath really well in their final moments? Okay. I'm so floored. I'm lighting up the magazine. Oh, he says, now's your last chance to take a swim. He's like, no thanks. I've been looking for a good time to die. Because they were going to kill him anyway. They were going to kill Keith. He's like, if I stick around, I'd be killed anyway. So in this way, he kind of becomes like a martyr to sermon them. He's like, always remember me, guys. Oh my God. And there's this moment between them that, okay, in the Discord, someone, when this episode came out, I guess it was 2 weeks ago, someone had noted in the Discord, they're like, they said there was a moment between two characters. They didn't say who, but they said there was a moment between two characters that was much more romantic than in the manga. And I was instantly like, I was away from the thing and I was like, wait, what? It saw it on my phone and I was like, what's happening? And so obviously I was like, I don't want any spoilers. But they were like, oh, we won't spoil it for you. It's just there's two characters that interact and their interaction is framed in a much more romantic way than it is in the manga. And I was like, oh, okay. And that's all that there was. So I thought it was going to be like Jean and Reiner or Connie and Reiner, like one of the characters that we were following, like one of the warrior crews and the cadets. I thought maybe it was something like that. But no, it's Magath and Keith. I'm pretty sure. I know you guys will comment in the comments down below, but I'm pretty sure it's between these two because, man, there's like a tension here. It's kind of crazy. But Magath says, why did you side with us? It might be the island's downfall. And as they're all coming onto the ship, and Magath says, and Keith says, I saw some old students of mine heading south out of Shiganshina. And he looked through the window. He's like, one of them was with Annie Leonhardt. And when I realized their plan, my heart was moved. That they chose to work together. That they chose. So he's like, I just love that shot of him. That he's like, they're choosing to push aside the hatred and work together, for a common cause. And he was moved by it. And by how much they've grown. Yeah, that they saw past hatred and were able to at least come together to understand one another, right? So if you hadn't stopped those reinforcements, we would have been goners. And I love that Magath says, you'll be known as one of the heroes who saved the world. And I'm like, Willie? I'm like, because how does Hanji and any of them know that he stopped, How will they know that Magath was one of the ones that stopped the train? I'm like, how will they know Keith was involved? But I like that he tells, it's almost like, yeah, realistically, I don't think anybody, how are they going to know that Keith was the one that stopped the train? They don't. They won't know. But I think Magath is saying this just putting him in general, like the heroes who saved the world, you'll be one of them, whether they recognize you or not. Which, you know what? That sucks so bad because you know what that means? That means Keith was a bystander up until the end because he's not going to be known as one of the heroes. He was one of the heroes of this series. He's been one of the heroes of this series since Bystander, since episode 11 of season 3. He's been one of the heroes for his actions, and he's not going to be remembered. It's, it's fitting for his character, I suppose. And then Keith, he's like, that makes two of us. That history is going to remember you too. And that ties to, like I said at the beginning of this episode, that Magath's whole thing is like being remembered and recognizing history and to teach it to future generations. And so in this moment, Magath's like, I'm going down where they'll remember me. And if Gabby and all them live till the end, they'll be able to tell others what we did. Oh, man. And then, yeah, he's like, I refuse to pat myself on the back. And I like this. He's like, ignoring my conscience, I ordered those children to serve the country's interests. I love that Magath, like, he just puts all of his sins out there in this last moment of him dying. He's like, in my conscience, I knew it was wrong. I knew what we were doing with the warrior program was wrong, but I ignored it, and I chose to serve my country's interests instead. And that kind of ties to the whole thing here, right? It ties to this whole thing of the Jaegerists versus Armin and Co. In that the country's interests, Flock is serving the country's interests, being like, we need to stop them from talking to Aaron because it could hurt our country. But Armin and them are like, we know that we're putting our own people in danger, but our conscience is telling us this is the right thing to do. And it's like, 98 degrees, be true to your heart. They're like, we gotta follow our conscience. We gotta follow our morals and what we consider to be the right thing to do. even at the cost of everything else. It's what needs to be done. So I feel like that's kind of McGath doing a parallel of that with his words here, saying that I was like Flock. I ignored my conscience, and I ordered these children to serve the country's interests, just like Flock ordered the Aegris and ordered the cadets to kick the snot out of Surma, or out of Keith, to kick Surma and the others to kick the snot out of Keith. McGath's like, I was like Flock, and I realized it was wrong. And just his eyes, they just animate McGath's eyes so well in this series. Like, his eyes have so much emotion tied to them. It's like, and I commanded them to destroy the wall. I love this image, but I finally realized if these kids can live normal lives, damn, how happy that would make me. Like, I love that shot of all of them together, like Gabby pulling on Falco's ear and all of them, and Zeke's in the background. Yeah, he's like, if I could even help them have a sliver of a normal life, then how happy would that make me? And again, I'm not saying, like, Aaron obviously is not going along with Parody's needs. Aaron is doing things for his own conscience and what he believes is right. But Aaron's whole thing is like, I believe Aaron's thing is like, if I can save Armin and Mikasa and let them live a happy life, then that will make me happy. Like, that's how I figure Aaron is rationalizing all of this. Again, it's complicated, but that's what I think too. I think he's like McGath. He's like, if I can make Armin and Mikasa able to live a happy life in Historia, then it's worth it. It'll make me happy. And then Keith, like, takes the step towards him. This is the part that he's like, well, you might not pat yourself on the back, but I'm proud of you. This is the moment I was like, wait, what is this ship? What is this crack ship that's developed between McGath and Keith? What? He's like, I'm proud of you. I'm like, and I love that the Jaegers show up at the window, like, banging on it, being like, what's going on in there? Like, as this is happening, they're like, hurry up and open the door. Like, what are you doing? Open it, damn it. He's like, I'm sure those kids would agree. They're like, what are you doing? And then that look, and he says, thank you. And there's just that look between them. By the way, what's your name? He's like, Keith Shaddis. And you? I'm like, what? And he puts the gun down. Theo McGath. And they smile at each other. Ah! No, I ship it. I ship it so much, the mentors. No. Oh. Keith never found a woman his whole life because he's waiting for Theo McGath. Oh my God. It's not that I'm trying to ship everybody with everybody, but this show, how you quit making it look like it. It's just like, it's the most beautiful. And look at his eyes. Keith's eyes like get soft in that moment. Mappa, if you don't want me to ship them, quit making them have these soft, beautiful expressions, damn it. I feel like the last shred of sanity in me has just snapped. And it's over Keith and McGath's deaths. Oh my God. Okay. Oh my God, it's amazing. This is amazing. Yep. What can we do? Oh, I'm so floored. And then they blow up the ship. They blow up the ship in the harbor. Oh my God. And yeah, and Gabby crying and all of them being like, Gabby crying out to him. And Peak holding Gabby and Peak being about to cry. Like, no. Because Peak loved McGath too. Oh, that's, oof. And then the ship and everything going up in flames. So nobody's getting off the island. That's the thing. That was the port. That's the thing. That was the port. And they just took the only ship. So everybody on Parody is stuck there now. They have no way to escape. There's no ships left. They're stuck there on Parody. There's no way out. Oh my God. I just, God. And we still have that end credit scene. Oh my goodness. Okay. So the end credit scene. The end credit scene, y'all. Oh my God. Let's get to it. Okay. So getting to the end credit scene, as soon as the OP, I was like, this episode does not seem long enough. And so it is not. We actually get an end credit with this, which is good. All right. So we cut to them on the boat. We decided with McGath to head for Odia. So they're basically reviewing the plan with Reiner and Annie, what ended up happening, like what the deal was, like why did they retreat on the boat, or rather they had no choice. Again, we talk about choices. I mean, I guess they did have a choice. Their choice was to either stay there and die, because that's what was going to happen, or flee on the boat. So that was really their two options. Either we die here in this port town, or we flee on the boat to hope that it can get serviced. And so, yeah, there's nothing we can do to save your hometown, Liberio. As like the bird of fate is there, right? God, this scene, because yeah, I like that it looks like you see Gabby there on the floor. Reiner is like slumped up against the window he's slumped up against the door frame looking miserable. And then Jean has one hand on Annie and Mikasa's like holding her back with her elbow. And it's like Annie had lunged at Hanji, and there's nothing they can do at this point. And Annie just collapses and says, if that's true, my entire reason for fighting is gone. There's no reason for me to fight anymore. Yeah, because she's like, her whole reasoning was to fight for her father. And if he's gone, what's the point? Oh. And Annie, like, about to cry. Like, again, the most emotional we have seen Annie this entire series. The most emotional we've seen her. And she's like, I'm getting off the ship. I'm like, she's basically, like, gonna commit suicide. Because she doesn't see the point in it anymore. Her whole reason for living was to get back to her father and save him. Because I'm like, you can't get off the ship now. You'll just drown. And I love that at that point, Mikasa crouches down to comfort her. I love that. I love that Mikasa goes to comfort her. And Annie's whole thing is that her reason for fighting is gone. And you know what's really funny about that is that I love Mikasa comforting her in that moment, because Mikasa can relate to Annie. Annie's like, Eren was the whole reason, was like one of the main reasons that I was living in this world, was for Eren. And when Eren was no longer a part of my life, I didn't know what to do. So Annie's like, my whole reason for fighting is gone. Like, yeah, Armin's there. And you could argue that Mikasa would fight for Armin, but Eren was her main reason. Like, you could argue that Annie's fighting for Reiner and the warriors and the others, but her father was her main sole anchor to this world, and Eren was Mikasa's. And when Eren took off and left Mikasa, she's like, what's the point of me fighting anymore? What am I fighting for? And so in this moment, I like that she comforts Annie, because it's like both of them are kind of on the same page, right? And Hanji says, even if the rumbling stopped in its tracks, Liberio and Marley's destruction was inevitable. And Peak is there holding... I love that Peak is there holding Gabby in her arms, because they're both suffering, because their families are in Liberio. They're both suffering too. And then we see Connie helping Armin with the bullet. Like, they haven't changed Armin's shirt yet. He's still like got the bloody bullet holes. Magath understood that. But here's the point in all of that. They're like, Marley and Liberio was going to get destroyed at some point. It was just going to happen. And so Hanji makes the comment that Magath understood what was going on, but he gave his life. So like Magath wanted them to move forward and push ahead. And I love that Peak like closes her eyes and like comforts Gabby. And Connie is like, Connie's mouth is healed up, so Connie can talk again. He's healed up. He's just not fully on his feet. And I want to make note that Connie does not heal, or Armin does not heal fast. I meant Armin. Armin does not heal quickly. Annie and Reiner, they both look like they're healed up already, but Armin's taking a long time, which is interesting. I wonder if that's a Colossal Titan thing. And Hanji says he didn't do it for Liberio or for Marley, because he knew that they were a lost cause. He told them to push forward to save people whose names we'd never know. So he said, move forward to save unknown people who are innocent. Yeah. It's the weirdest thing is that McGaff could have lost hope like Annie when he realized that Marley was going to be destroyed. He could have lost hope. But instead he is like, no, there are countless people around the world who are innocent and know nothing of what's coming, and we can't just let them die senselessly. Like, we don't know who they are, but they need help. And so that's what we're going to do. We're going to help them. And it's like, oh. And I like that Reiner's got his arm up against the doorway there, and Connie and Armin behind him, and Armin just looks just sad, and Reiner just looks depressed. He did it entrusting us to save people whose names he'd never know. And I like that resolve that Gabby's like, okay. Yeah, and Peek just comforting her. I love that. I'm guessing Falco's like out of commission right now. Probably with Levi. We don't see Levi in here either. Maybe Levi's watching over Falco. That would be good. It'd be a nice tie-in if Levi was watching over Falco. That would be actually really cool because we've seen Levi watch over Aaron all of these seasons, like when Aaron had gotten done transforming and things like that. So it would be cool if now Levi was watching over Falco. That'd be neat. I like that. In that case, I'll ask you again. And Annie brings it up, saying, can you kill Aaron? Not will you. I think that's an important distinction. Not will you kill Aaron, but can you? If the worst came to worse, and Aaron would not stop the rumbling, if he refused to listen or offer any type of compromise or anything, could you kill him? Not will you, not are we. Because I think that the language being used here is important. Because Annie's not saying, are we going to kill Aaron? She's not saying, when are we going to kill Aaron? She's like, if it comes down to it, can we? Is it even an option on the table? And Mikasa has her hand on Annie, who says, if I try to kill Aaron, then can you stand by and watch? I love her looking at Mikasa like this. This is beautiful. Like, she's like, would you be able to stand by and watch if I tried to kill him? Because Annie's saying, if we get up there and I can't control my emotions, and my emotions of my father's death get the better of me, and I try to kill him, are you going to stand by and watch? Are you going to try to stop me? Like, that's what she's saying. Oh God, that look. And Armin and Connie looking at her. And she's like, I'm sick of killing each other. I don't want to fight with you anymore. So that's Annie doesn't want to kill anybody. Annie, I'm sick of fighting and killing. And I think that's too why Annie goes along with this whole plan. She's like, I'm tired of it. She's like, I've just killed all these people. Like, aren't you tired, Mikasa? Aren't you tired too? Like, I don't want to fight with anybody. She's like, I don't want to fight you, but you've got to understand where I'm coming from. And do you? And it's just, God, Annie showing so much emotion in this episode, like about to cry. And yeah, and so we see like Hanji and them looking, and there's that guy piloting the boat's like looking back with the side eye, and the Asmobito lady, and Mikasa just, she doesn't give an answer. I also like, okay, for the record, Jean is like looking up here, like looking kind of just contemplating, being like, what are we going to do? And Connie and Armin are like, huh. Reiner's got like the most beefcake buff daddy husbando pose here with like the arm across the door frame. Mappa, I hope that this pose is like this in the manga. God, I hope it is. I was like, give us some Reiner fan service. I'll take it. I don't want to fight you guys. Not even Aaron. That's the thing. Yeah, and Annie says, I don't want to fight Aaron. Like, that's getting across the whole message that Annie, she does not want to fight Aaron. Like, Annie, I mean, you could argue because Annie knows she's going to lose, but also because Annie's like, I'm tired of fighting. I'm tired of all this. Like, I just don't know what to do. I don't want to fight Aaron, but now what do we do? What is going to happen? Oh my gosh. So yeah, so that's the episode. That's the episode. We got one left. One left. season finale. I'm literally taking a week off because I have to go on a trip for work tomorrow. I'm taking a week off, and I won't be back until next Sunday. And so at some point next Sunday, I will be watching the season finale. It'll have been out for a week, so should be fun times. But yeah, oh God. So what to predict for the season finale? I have a set of wish lists that I would like to happen. I would like to see our crew. Here's the thing. Let me erase part of this board because we're gonna end this season, and it's gonna end before a hiatus, and we have part 3 come out. So what we have left is rather interesting because I know there's 9 chapters left supposedly that are not going to get animated this season. There's supposedly 9 chapters left, which is, I don't want to know any manga spoilers, so we'll forget that. But I'm going to leave that info as important thing up here. But essentially, we have a timeline that has been established. There are stakes. There is a timeline that has been established. So we have the idea here that the rumbling will destroy the continent in 4 days. Okay? And it's going to take a day to a day and a half to service that darn airship. Okay? And so then what we do from there, once we get on the airship, I'm like, okay, well we're just going to fly to Aaron, talk it out, hope that works, see what happens. But so there's lots of things we don't know. What we don't know is Aaron's headspace, right? We don't know Aaron's headspace in all of this. We've been in Aaron's headspace in episode 19, but we don't know where he's at now. We just know he's been in the paths for who knows how long while this is all going on, what Aaron's thinking about. We don't really know what position Zeke is in. We don't really know Zeke's position in all of this, or what's going on with Ymir, or how much destruction has happened. We don't know the full scope. We can assume Liberio is gone, but we don't know exactly what's happening. I don't know. And we don't know Historia's deal. We don't know Historia and the rest of Parody, because that was the train of reinforcements that got destroyed. So, I mean, eventually somebody from Parody is going to figure out, like, hey, nobody's called us back. What's going on? And go to make contact and see what's up. But everybody's dead at that point, unless we don't know if Flock is really dead or not. We don't know Flock's status. If he's actually dead or if he just, like, crawled out of the river and saved himself. We don't know. We don't know for sure about Flock's status. So we know Keith and Theo are dead. But there's a lot of unanswered questions that I don't know will be addressed in the last episode of the season or not. But what I would like to see happen in the last episode is I would like to check in with Aaron and the rumbling. I'd like to check in and see what's going on there. We haven't seen him since episode 21 through 22, so it'd be cool to check up in on him, see what's happening, see if we can get into his headspace. I would like to at least get some brief tie into Historia and Farman Coon. What's our trajectory? We don't know exactly how far along Historia is. That's the thing. Is Historia like 8 months along and like about to have a baby in a couple weeks? Or is she like about to have a baby now? Like, what timing if it was now? But I'm like, when is Historia due? We never got confirmation of how far along she is. I mean, she's pretty far along, but we don't know if it's like 7 or 8 months, if it's, 39 weeks. We don't know. I'd like to tie in with them. I would love some like convo and catch up on the boat with our crew, our alliance, with our Suicide Squad. We noted back in episode 24, I said it was like Avengers, and somebody on Patreon was like, it's more like a Suicide Squad. And I'm like, no, you're right. It's basically the Suicide Squad. So we need to catch up with them, see with them. I want to check in with old Falco. I want to check in with Falco, and I want to check in with Levi. Because Falco's just had his first transformation at the port, and Levi has been still oddly silent throughout this entire ordeal. And I kind of, Yelena having those words about violence and the system, and I want Levi to comment on it, but I don't know what he would say and how that's going to go. And then I want to know, what is the plan? That's the grand thing. Like, what do we do? I mean, there is no perfect plan because, again, we don't know what Aaron is going to do. We don't know what he's thinking. And that's kind of tying back to this whole info is important sort of thing. The big theme that I find in these last couple of episodes is that having information is incredibly important. If they'd known ahead of time that the boat needed to be serviced for a full day, then that would have changed their entire plan going into this whole deal, but they didn't know, right? And they never asked, that's the thing, they never asked Hizuru or any of those people before all of this went down. They never had a conversation with the mechanics. And you could argue, why would they? But with Hanji being the leader and everything, it's like no one ever had that conversation to say how long the boat took to service. It just never popped up, right? It just wasn't thought about. So no one knew about any of that. And then the information, because the Jaegerists and the Suicide Squad, as we call them, because the 104th and the Jaegerists didn't know each other's, intentions or goals or things, because that information wasn't shared between them, it just created this big chaotic battle. And so information is important. And my whole thing is that our crew on the boat, they know nothing about what Aaron is thinking. And that's problematic. And you would think, my whole thing is, Aaron has the power of the Founding Titan. He can use the paths to communicate directly to them. So you would think, Aaron, that you would take this time as you're destroying the world to talk to Armin and them. You've had all this time in the paths to think about this. Maybe while the rumbling's going on. That is my biggest thing. And again, I'll talk about it in the recap. But Aaron, he's been friends with Mikasa and Armin this whole time. I'm like, do you not think they would try to come and find you? I know he tried to distance himself from them and push them away as far as he could, but they're still your best friends. If anything, you just confused them more. You just confused them more and made them want to come after you and be like, what the hell, Aaron? Why'd you do that? So I'm like, you've had all this time to think about this. Would you not try to connect to Armin and Mikasa right now and tell them what's going on before they launched this plan that might involve killing all of your people you're trying to protect? I don't know. It just, I keep thinking that Aaron will talk to them through the paths, but he's not yet. He's not talked to anybody. And that lack of communication, it kind of flies in the face of the message Isayama has been giving us this last couple of episodes about how important communication is and how important talking to one another is. And Aaron's not doing that. So I understand why Aaron is doing everything with the rumbling and I understand his motivations, but I'm so curious why he's not having that conversation and why he doesn't want to. And I guess we'll find out. I don't want to know any spoilers. I guess maybe next episode we'll find more out about that. But, this was a conclusion to that battle. God, it did not go the way that I thought it would. It did not go the way I thought it would. I still don't know if Flock is dead or alive. I could see Flock living long enough next episode for them to find him on. I do want confirmation of, is Flock alive? I do want confirmation of that. Because I could see next episode like him like bubbling out of the water to be like, go tell everyone that they were traitors to the island. And because here's the thing too, right? That could be a thing. If the people there that saw Armin and Mikasa and then betray them are dead. So if Armin and co end up somehow stopping Aaron, somehow, I don't know how, but let's hypothetically say that they stop him and they come back to parity, anybody that would view them as a traitor is dead. So they could work their way back there and nobody would know otherwise. But if Flock manages to live and tells everyone, he's like, it's Mikasa and Armin, and they betrayed us and they took on the airship to go kill Aaron, then when they come back, they're going to have a whole nother thing to deal with. So I don't know how that's going to work. I want to see if we find, or maybe they find Flock's body in the waters the next day or something. I don't know. I just want to know. I want to know what Aaron's headspace is before we round out this season and have to go like a year without knowing. I want to know that. I'd like to get something with Historia to know where she's at. That'd be great. This is my wish list for episode 28. I want them to catch up and have conversations on the boat. I want catch up with Falco and Levi. I want to know what the plan is, what we're thinking about doing, and is Flock alive? Not too much to ask in 23 minutes. Right? Oh my God. Not too much to ask, huh? It's fine. So yeah. Ooh. But yeah, so next episode should be a fun time. I'm pretty excited. I'm very curious to know your thoughts down below. I feel like this discussion is not as long for this episode, but it was a pretty action-oriented episode that rounded out a lot of things quickly. I am so sad Magath and Keith are dead. We are going to toast them heartily in the recap review and RIP. We're going to toast them. And if Flock dies, if he died in this episode, I'm going to go grab some Burger King and wear my crown during the recap. And I'll put on my crown for Flock's toast in the recap if it comes to that. But, man, if we lost all three of them this episode, sad days. Sad days indeed. The world's just smaller without them. So, but we'll see, right? And we'll see if we get confirmation next episode. So, in the meantime, I hope y'all enjoyed this reaction and discussion. I'm very curious to know your thoughts down below. But I hope y'all have a wonderful week. You guys have all seen the ending of the season by now, but I gotta wait a week because I'm gonna be gone. So I'm excited for next week. But in any case, stay safe, take care, and yeah, I'll be back next week with episode 28, the season finale of season 4, part 2 of Attack on Titan. Bye.